Hi, everyone, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live. I'm Emma Davies, the CEO and co founder of Thesmia.ai, an internal comms tool for HR people. If you haven't had a look at it and a play with it, please do. I think you'll love it. Amira's going to tell you a bit about it in a bit, or at least we're going to talk about it. And this is obviously my wonderful colleague, Amira. Amira, over to you. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Amira Kohler, and I am the the founder of People Stuff, which is a fractional HR and AI change consulting company. My main stuff that I guess is relevant for this webinar is I provide workshops for HR leaders and employees on human in the loop AI readiness so that they get ready for the huge tidal wave of AI, and I talk Charles language because that's where I started.
So you couldn't be in safer hands with this conversation with Amira. Not only does she get HR, but she gets AI. It's a winner. So we are going to be discussing whether AI is actually coming for your HR job or not. So that's our first question, I guess, Amira. What do you think? Do you think it's out there ready to steal everyone's jobs?
So no, but a qualified no. So I think that it's a yes and a no is the point. So let's think about the two parts of a typical HR, maybe business partner's job, where AI genuinely can do it better than humans. So first is really looking at and handling the repetitive, admin-heavy, bureaucratic bits of HR's role that they complain about all the time and say, we want to be released to do more strategic work, whatever that looks like. And that is the stuff that drags them down. And the truth is that AI is really good at taking some fairly straightforward questions where there's a linear answer and supplying that. So if it's an HR policy, for instance, if it's employee questions about outstanding annual leave, maternity, you name it, AI is really good at that stuff. And there's loads of organisations who are working on that exactly now. So big tick if AI can do that better. The second one is chewing through loads of data, analysing it, finding themes, reporting the findings, all that sort of stuff, which probably HR people do enjoy a bit more, but still they can't handle all the data that they should be getting their hands on, whether it's finance data, HR data, customer data, all that sort of stuff. AI is really, really good at. So I do think that the truth is that it is coming for bits of the job, but not other bits, which I can explain. Because I think the point is that where HR excels is all the stuff that AI is really not very good at. So HR people love to understand what's really going on beneath the surface. They want to spend time reading the room, understanding the cultural kind of context of an organisation, working out the complexity of why a transformational change has worked in one department and one country and not another, etc., etc. AI is terrible at that. It genuinely has no clue about body
Just make it
language,
up.
about context, all that sort of stuff. So I guess in summary, yes, it's coming for bits of the job, the bits that most HR people hate anyway.
I agree with you. And I think that's a good thing because I think ultimately, when we work with HR people, the thing that we hear time and time again is I want to spend more time working on the culture of the business and, really executing change management effectively and caring about the well-being of the people in the organization, because we know that makes people, if you get time to focus on well-being and performance and all those good things that HR want to be doing, that is going to make the business more productive, and ultimately it's going to drive revenue for the business and growth. So it comes from a good place. And obviously the idea that AI might even take a part of your job is quite scary. I mean, we'll get onto that a little bit later. But I was also trying to think about this without trying to be like a doomsdayer and be like, it's going to take your job. Because it's not. I think if you work at an organisation that values HR, where your HRD or your chief people officer has got a seat at the top table and they're involved in the business strategy and your goals are aligned to the business goals and all that good stuff, AI is not going to take your job or your entire job, because the business values what you do. If you work for an organization that maybe doesn't value what you do as much, I think that is where maybe there feels like there's a real risk. But I equally think potentially in that circumstance, you've got an opportunity with AI to actually flip that around.
Yes.
That you can get in front of that, and you can be the person that pushes forward with like the conversation around AI processes, what it means for your people, what it means for, other aspects of the business. How can we actually drive growth in the business using AI, but making sure we've got processes in place to protect people, protect your IP, all of those things. And HR is absolutely in a great place to be able to do that. I mean, that's some of the work that you do with your workshops, right, Amira? You're there like having those conversations with people. So I think, yeah, there's an opportunity even in that kind of more maybe feels a little bit negative outlook. I think there's an opportunity, right?
And let me just give you an example, because you've mentioned my workshop. So I run these workshops for HR teams, specifically one day AI strategy and readiness workshops, because I do recognise that HR people it may be in a typical team, you'll get one or two people who are really up for this and are really curious and really open-minded. But you'll also get some people who are really nervous and really concerned. Understandably, it's a new, massively life-changing technology. But in this recent workshop that I did, it was really interesting because towards the end of the day, having done lots about explaining how AI works, what you need to know about it, about the legalities around why it has bias and why it hallucinates and all that sort of stuff. So explaining it, looking at use cases in a particular organisation. Then I get to the point, which comes to this conversation, about, so bearing in mind you know what it can do, now prioritise, and I did this with this team recently, prioritise the stuff that you think AI could really make a difference to. What are the greatest things, what are the quickest wins, and maybe one really transformational thing it could do. And this organisation had a corporate licence to Copilot, and so the team was flipping up on the flip chart all these stuff, and they came out with their top 3 things that it could make a difference to, either because it would provide better insight than they could, or it would improve their customer service, or make them just more productive and more efficient and faster. Came up with these 3. And then one of them said, I just want to go and check what we wrote on the whiteboard last week about the very things that drag us down and make us slow and reduce our credibility in front of the executive team and the finance director and the guys that we need to go and get the money from, and etc, etc. Complete correlation. Total correlation. Exactly the stuff that AI can help with was the stuff that they knew was where they had weaknesses and was the greatest opportunity. So it's just, as I said, I think it's the very stuff that it's good at is the stuff that I think is valuable to HR teams to hand over in some ways with guardrails. Mm-hmm. We know that the data has to be the data that goes into AI. It's like with everything else, if it's rubbish in, it'll be rubbish out. And where AI is quite, people do need to understand it does hallucinate if it doesn't have decent data. It will take its data set from what it has either been fed, or it goes off into the big old web and it grabs information, and it's trying to keep you happy. It's trying to give you an answer that it thinks is going to, it supplies something that you go, oh, okay, thanks, that's very useful. So the data has got to be decent, and I do think that there is a risk that some people think, oh, well, it knows better than me. And so people's role, the human in the loop, the reason why I'm fascinated by the human in the loop side is we need to critique, to stay alert, to do human oversight. We need to be the experts on the outcome, the output of AI, so that we're not handing over our responsibility to some kind of artificial intelligence, because that is dangerous when people do that.
Yeah, and we'll get on to maybe to where HR leaders are getting it kind of right and wrong. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I think is a misconception from maybe the C-suite is this idea that you could give a junior person some AI, you could give a HR exec, some ChatGPT or a Copilot license, and they could do the job of your CPO, your HRD, and that is just categorically not true. I mean, as Amira is saying, you put crap in, you get crap out. There has to be that human oversight that understands what's going in is good enough and that it's accurate, especially when it comes to data, and that what comes out the other end is also quality, especially when it comes to things like, I mean, I'm all for using it to support with writing strategies and communications and all of those sorts of things, those things that are time consuming otherwise, but it should act as your kind of like assistant, not as your main source of kind of information. And it's not gospel. So when it comes to HR leaders, Amira, what do you think people, I mean, you're working with people in HR all the time. What are people getting right and wrong about AI at the minute?
Okay. So I'd say what is right. I'll take this at an individual basis, team and organisational. So on an individual basis, what I'm seeing is a lot of people who are really concerned to learn the fundamentals, to stay in touch with what is going on in the AI world, because they're seeing articles about it all the time in the news, in HR magazines, etc., etc. Staying in touch with it. I think that's really important, and that's what I'm seeing a lot are doing right. Building partnerships with IT and really understanding between the two functions, IT and HR together, how they can kind of go and educate people and keep them safe and keep them curious and on top of AI. As a team, I think what I'm seeing right is when a team learns about this stuff together and shares knowledge and probably finds the most IT savvy person in the HR team, and they sit down and they discuss the good, the bad and the really ugly of where it goes wrong, and they're really open about it, and it's not like one person is off doing it and everyone else is closed their ears to it. That I'm seeing a lot, which is really great. And at an organisational level, I think where HR is being fantastic is when they realise they are the conscience of the company, because one of the biggest issues with AI is there's a growing trust issue. So lots of senior people and IT people are so excited, I mean overexcited in some ways I'd say, and the employees are thinking, so why are they so excited? What exactly is it that they know is and where HR needs to really step in is bridging that gap and trying to maintain employee trust and confidence by being really transparent about where AI is being used, training them up such that they are not scared and that they are ready, etc., etc. So that's all the right stuff. Wrong stuff, I guess, is kind of, as you'd expect, a bit of a flip. So where I'm really worried is when HR people are just ostriches, or anyone else for that matter, and they're kind of like, I'm already behind the curve. I'm not really up for this.
I can't be bothered.
Stuff. Yeah, it's like, don't do that. Really, really. If you're worried about vulnerability, that's the last thing you want to do. You've got to get your head out of the sand and really know it. Understand it enough, and enough means things like knowing enough about some of the language of AI to at least be credible in the room, so that you continue to be invited and to have a voice, because this stuff matters to every employee, and HR is there to protect the employees. So, and I guess the only other thing that I'd say that some are doing wrong is this point about trusting AI too much and not understanding enough about why it goes wrong, when it goes wrong, having the human oversight element to make sure that you can correct that and, alleviate those issues that are there with AI is the truth.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the most dangerous parts of this, and I think it is, I do say danger because I think about this from a kind of organizational risk perspective. Obviously, there's the cybersecurity concerns, but there's also the kind of like wider concerns, which are if people are in your organization, you can guarantee no matter what your organization does, there are people using AI with or without your knowledge. And it's not to scaremonger, but it's just the reality. It's in our everyday lives. Now, lots of the AI tools have crossed over into popular culture. They're conversations that people will have with their teenagers about how they're using it to do their homework, let alone what your people in your organization are doing. And that does create a risk within your business if people are using the tools and you're not aware, because that is where you do open yourself up to vulnerabilities, to data breaches, to information, the hallucination thing, like if you're putting in data and it's not great data. So that is something that I think the ostrich syndrome, if you want to call it that, that's where that becomes dangerous, because if you ignore it, people are going to do it anyway.
Yeah. And actually, where the germ of the idea over a year ago now of my first ever workshop on this, these my people stuff workshops, was exactly that conversation. I was talking to an HRD who I have a huge amount of respect for, and she basically said, I really worry about, I don't know much about AI, and I know I should know more, but I've kind of like, I just got so much to do, I can't think about it. And she said, but it's okay, because no one in my organisation is using it because we've stopped them. And I was like, we really need to talk, because that is, that's what's sometimes called the shadow AI, where people, if they are constrained by you and they know from their home life, for instance, that ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or whatever it is can help them, they'll find a way to put it into their jobs. So and that might be on their personal phone, not their work computer. So I was like, okay, we need to talk, because you need to understand whether your employees are using it. They need to understand how it works. You need to put some safeguards in and some principles, and you need to understand, and they need to understand where it could be useful for them and where not to use it. So that was kind of almost where this whole thing started from, to be honest.
Yeah, and you still see it now. One of the things that I see quite often, which is really concerning me, is where we're effectively using AI tools to just communicate with each other. So someone's taken my email, copy and paste it into ChatGPT, gets their response in ChatGPT, pastes it back, and it's just a back and forth ChatGPT conversation. Now, I think that is symptomatic of organisations that haven't put these guardrails in place and haven't clearly communicated with people when it isn't appropriate to use AI.
Yeah.
Responding to your own emails, for example,
Yes.
definitely something you should be doing yourself. So what about the actual tools themselves, and where do you think HR can fit into, supporting organisations to invest more in AI tools, especially because we do know there is a benefit in terms of, like doing admin and doing some of the rubbish jobs that no one wants to do?
Yeah. Well, I think, so I'm going to talk about Thesmia a bit, okay? Because I cannot tell people enough how much they should try this Thesmia out. Because having been in HR and then in change management for a long time, what I'm really genuinely blown over by is how clever it is. So some people might think one of these tools, a tool like Thesmia, is it going to add anything extra over ChatGPT or Claude? But because the corpus of information that you and Joseph have put into it is with HR knowledge, with change management knowledge, with comms knowledge, with marketing knowledge, it is so much cleverer than one of those tools that. It's also what I'm really impressed by is the prompting. If people are kind of quite novice to AI, a lot of they hear this term, you're meant to be prompting it. You're such that you get better and better and better and more focused answers to the question that you are putting into an AI tool. Thesmia already has all of that, a lot of it. And it's kind of like this self-fulfilling learning process because lots of the prompts are already in there saying, do you want to understand more about this specific tools, or about how you might have a comm strategy to impress your senior leaders, or a business case, or whatever it might be. You don't have to start with a blank sheet of paper. It kind of like helps you work out what the questions are, and then it gives you better answers, and then you can think, okay, so that's how I start prompting it. That's how I can get cleverer and cleverer in terms of my iterative use of this. I know there are loads of AI tools out there where AI is being bolted on to lots of HR software, performance management tools. I'm a big fan, I like it. Talent management pools, recruitment, etc. Great, but they cost a lot of money. There has to be a corporate license if you're going to buy a Culture Amp or a BetterWorks or whatever it might be. Brilliant, but it's not something that is easily applicable. You can't just like start experimenting with it yourself necessarily. You need a corporate license. With something like Thesmia, it's actually really cost effective for a team or an individual in HR to kind of probably have a conversation with their IT person, say this is what it does, happy for me to use it. I'm not going to put. Actually, I'll come to something in a second about what its safeguards are as well. I'm impressed. But anyway, so that's my little plug, I guess, because
I
I
didn't
would,
pay her to say it.
yeah, I would have just, oh my God, would I have loved to have this tool available to me when I was an HR business partner and, senior HR in-house person. Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I think that's one of the things that I've observed. So I work lots of people probably will know this. I work as a marketing consultant. I work with a lot of the HR tech companies. We regularly hear feedback from clients that we want to know what AI functionality the tool, whatever tool, insert tool here, HR tech tool here has. But one of the parts that's missing from the conversation is what you want from the AI. What do you want the tool to be able to do? And what do you and therefore what do you expect the outcome of the tool having AI included to actually do for you? And I think that's one of the things that I would say to anyone listening is when you are going shopping for tools, whether that's Thesmia or not, is know exactly what it is you want it to do for you. I mean, with Thesmia, we've been really clear on the use case for it, internal comms, helping you get that buy-in for stuff, helping prepare pitch decks, all that stuff is all inbuilt in there. I kind of think of it like it's like your little angel on your shoulder that's like there, like, yeah, you can do this, HR. But if you are buying like a culture amp or or a workday or whatever, understand not just does it have AI capability, but why do you want it and what do you want that AI capability to be able to do for your people? Because one of the things that concerns me is that, we get into this world where, like, I don't know, it's suggesting like how to write feedback to somebody. And that's okay if the feedback prompt that you get back from the AI is saying, well, have you thought about how you might frame this to this person? And it's kind of helping you devise the feedback, but you don't want it writing the feedback for you, because then what is the purpose of the feedback, right? So yeah, I think just be clear on what you want the tool to be able to do for you, how the AI might support your people. And this is really basic stuff, right? There's no right or wrong answer to this, but if you can articulate that in conversation, with vendors, I think that would be really beneficial, because then you can actually fully understand whether the AI capability that you want is actually there or not.
Yeah.
Because that's missing, I think, from quite a lot of conversations.
Absolutely. And I think the reason why it's missing is because, again, it's this thing of this fear of having to catch up that I think a lot of organisations and companies, and I hear this a lot, the ones I'm working with, the first question is, what AI tools should I be investing in? That's it's the wrong way round. It's
what do I want it to do?
What is the thing you're trying to solve? What is your biggest Achilles heel? What is your greatest opportunity to go and, as you said, looking right at the business strategy, where is your growth strategy? What's the business up to, and therefore what is the people strategy element to that? And you've got to be really clear about what you're trying to solve before you can possibly work out what tool it might enable that to happen, and whether it's an AI tool at all.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that, it's really interesting because for HR people who I think over the last sort of, I would say probably like 6 to 8 years have become definitely more tech savvy. They're more interested in how tech can solve some of the challenges that they have. But obviously, I'm a marketer, and we've always been in, our head has always been in like, what tech can we get to possibly help us do our jobs? And sometimes it isn't AI that's the thing that you need, it's automation, which is really machine learning. So is it actually AI that you need? Is it generative AI that you want? Or is it automation? Kind of sort of familiarize yourself with those terms. I mean, obviously, if you don't know what any of those mean, please pop a comment in the chat and Amira and I can explain them. But yeah, that's where I would start. It's what challenge are you trying to solve, and then is it AI that you actually need? Is it automation? Is it, or is it a person? Because that's the other answer here, right? Do you need a data analyst? Is it that kind of thing that you need? Is it, so really take it back to, what challenges you've got. So when it comes to sort of like the strategic side of all of this and AI, where does AI kind of fit into sort of strategic thinking for you, Amira? And can it actually help with change management?
Okay, so what does being strategic mean, really? I mean, I think it's 3 things: generating better HR insights to drive better and quicker decision making, delivering a better service to employees and managers, and driving efficiencies by freeing up time. So can tools help with that? Absolutely. I'm a performance management geek and have spent 20 years in change management. Some of the stuff that's out there in terms of tools around that stuff is absolutely fantastic, I have to say. But as I said, often quite expensive. If it's built into a large enterprise kind of HR platform, stuff doesn't come cheap. Again, I'm just going to say a little bit about Thesmia, because what you can do is ask it. So I did this little experiment before this session today, and I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, where I said, I'm an HR business partner, I'm just starting out using Thesmia. Can you give me a clue about some things you can do for me to make me more strategic? That was my question, right? And I was really interested to know what it was going to say. And it basically said, yes, I can. Absolutely. These are some things that I might be able to do for you. And it listed about a number of things and said, so why don't you tell me what's on your priority list? And I'll then see if I can help you be more, free up time, etc., etc. So it's just so human. It's like, that's the Gen AI bit. It's like, It's so friendly. It's like having this ultimately helpful, just as you said, angel on your shoulder. Can some of that be strategic? Absolutely, because what you can do is you can say, I need to build a business case. I need to go and create a project plan for so-and-so project. That stuff, if you're freeing up time to give you the time back to make those kind of, do value add work like that, absolutely. It's just it's very clever. And so sorry, I'm going to stop talking there. You say something.
We didn't do this just as a plug for Thesmia, but as we've got a HR tool, it kind of makes sense. That's the way it's been designed. We've designed it to be that. Ultimately we wanted it to be actually useful for HR people, and to kind of give them these are the kind of tools that myself in marketing we have had access to for a really long time. The automation tools. Obviously now we've got the Gen AI tools, so we've had access to stuff that has made our job so much easier for such a long time that I was like, let's give this gift back to HR, because you guys just don't have anything like that. You've got the HR tech stuff that covers the employee day job stuff, but you haven't necessarily got anything that's for you. So that was kind of premise of kind of coming up with it in the first place. So very quickly for you, Amira, we'll wrap up here, but is there anything you think out of this session, out of this last 30 minutes, that if you're a HR person listening to this, that you should take away from this conversation?
I think probably don't be scared. Just get going. So if people fear that everyone else is further ahead than them and they're kind of like never going to catch up, well, that's what makes them vulnerable. So just dive in, start experimenting safely, and give it a go, because you'll be pretty impressed with what it can do to help you.
Yeah. No, I think that's excellent advice. I would also, and we talk about this a lot in marketing, think of all the things in your day job that you don't like doing, and write them down and start experimenting. So even if it's something like, I don't like having to email everybody to remind them to fill out their annual appraisal forms, or whatever it might be, that is the place to start. Because those are safe experiments. They are not risky. It's not putting all your company data in or trying to write a new strategy with it. It's just basic day job stuff that you don't enjoy doing. And then my final piece of advice would be, if the conversation at your business, or if there isn't a conversation at your business about AI, you can be the one to be on top of it. You can start that conversation. You should start that conversation, and you should talk about it from a people perspective, but also how can we be helping our people? How does this drive growth for our business? And if you can even just be starting that conversation, I think you're in good stead to, hang on to your jobs, be at the forefront of it.
Absolutely. And how do we protect our employees, not just us, but our employees, to stay relevant?
Yep.
And to stay, keep themselves viable.
Yep.
Because
all of
the
us.
truth of agentic AI, we haven't even had a chance to talk about that, but it's getting cleverer all the time.
Mm-hmm.
HR's job is to be conscious of what it's going to do for all of us, such that we all stay ahead of it, basically. Well, at least co-partner with it as it develops.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining me, Amira. It's been an awesome chat. We'll definitely do this again. We've got so much more to talk
Got
about.
so much more.
And if you've got any questions for Amira and I, you can still pop them in the comments or reach out to Amira directly. If you're interested in Amira's workshops, reach out to her. They're fabulous.
I'm on
I know.
LinkedIn, Amira Kohler. There's only one of me.
There's only one of her. You can find her. And if you want to have a play with Desmia yourself, drop me a line. I will happily set you up a freebie so that you can have at it and start having some experimentation time and seeing what AI can really be doing for you in HR. So thank you, and join us next time. Thanks, Amira.
See you, everybody. Bye.